Good morning, Quackhawks. It is Thursday, April 30th, which means today is Creativity Day. Do you ever struggle with this idea of being creative? What if I told you the best thing to do is to throw out that idea altogether? Let's talk about it. So I'm reading through Jurassic Park, and I hope that you guys are too. If you don't have a copy of it, you can pick it up on Sora, you can pick it up on Audible, or you can find it online. So get into that book because it's way better than I thought it was going to be, and it is so much fun. It is split up into 7 sections, and so I read through the first section today. Even though each section has like 4 chapters, they're relatively brief. So this first section actually has a scene that isn't in the movie, but it is in the second movie. So if you've ever seen Jurassic Park Lost World or The Lost World Jurassic Park, then you might remember this scene at the very beginning. There's a family sitting out on the beach, and a little girl wanders into the jungle. And as she's wandering into the jungle, she finds a whole bunch of compies. They're these tiny dinosaurs that kind of act like birds. They even chirp. And they start to flood around her, and she's feeding them a little bit of food. And ultimately, it's a very tragic story where the girl dies. Whereas in the book, she simply gets one bite. And scientists start trying to figure out where this bite came from. And why it seemed like a whole bunch of kids kept on getting these bites from these lizards around Costa Rica. Now, all of them were drawing pictures of what that lizard looked like. And all of the scientists were having trouble figuring out what lizard it could possibly be. There's this amazing theme that is developing within Jurassic Park. And remember, I haven't read the whole book, so I'm in it with you guys. If you think you see a theme that I don't see, let me know. But there's this amazing theme at the beginning where these kids know the truth. And they're drawing this picture. And the picture looks like a dinosaur. Ultimately, a scientist who's also a mother comes into one of the labs and says, "Who drew this picture of a dinosaur?" And all the scientists are baffled. That's not a dinosaur. That's some lizard off of Costa Rica that we don't know about. No, that's a dinosaur. I've seen that dinosaur a million times. Look at it. It's drawn just like every little kid would draw a dinosaur. And all of a sudden the scientists start realizing, holy crap, it is a dinosaur. The kids were right all along. There's this idea of being radical. And oftentimes radical is seen as coming up with this new idea and completely changing the world. But in reality, radical is rooted in the word rooted. Just like the word radish, which is a root, is rooted in that same word. This idea of being rooted in something or going back to the roots of something is where we get the idea of being radical. And so when we say radical, what we're actually saying is somebody has identified something that we can go back to that has changed the shape of how things are now. There's this amazing thing about how you, as a high schooler today, have this experience with technology. You grew up with technology. You grew up with it surrounding you. And so in many of the same ways that I maybe wake up and I can write and I don't think about it because I've always known how to write, I don't think of it as a science. You think of technology in the same way. I swipe here, I boop here, and all of a sudden I'm Snapchatting, right? I know I sound very, very old right now, but that's exactly the point. I grew up with cell phones as a brand new technology. And I always thought of them as a science. I thought of every little piece and how they came together, and I thought of how it was supposed to work. But I didn't realize how it did work. I didn't realize the radical nature of technology. How has it been working the entire time? Whereas you might think of that as being the norm. That's exactly what's been happening this entire time. So why do I need to focus on it? Why do I need to think about it? That's the art of creativity. The art of creativity is recognizing that you, in your perspective, might see something that nobody else notices. And you might think that it's incredibly normal. You look up at the sky and you say it's blue. But what if nobody else really realized how blue was? And only you saw the color that you were seeing. You would take time to describe the same thing that you saw ever since you were born, and other people's minds would be blown. This is the act of creativity. Recognizing that you're in a very unique perspective and that your perspective matters. It shapes the way that other people can see the world. And so it's not a matter of coming up with some brand new idea. I was watching this amazing documentary about Little Peep on Netflix. If you've not seen that documentary, I think it's called Everybody's Everything or something like that. And I really think you should check it out. It's a very tragic story because, as you may know, Little Peep died at a very young age. But Little Peep was known for creating a musical genre that mixed emo and hip hop, which is something that nobody had actually successfully done until then. Which is strange because emo and hip hop were the coolest music genres all throughout my time in high school. It was all about Kanye and Fall Out Boy. And if I could mix those two things together, then yeah, I'm sure people would like that music. But I never thought to. In my mind, they were two very separate things. But for Little Peep, he grew up with hearing that music back to back all the time. And he heard something that tied them together at the root. That was how he was creative. In the same way, you look at your world and you hear music. You see technology. You think of things as normal. In reality, I can't see what you're seeing. You're drawing a dinosaur and I think it's a lizard. You're telling me it's not a lizard, it acts like a bird. And I think it's a lizard. I'm stuck in a certain perspective, and many of us are. You have the power to change that perspective. Creativity isn't about genius. It's not about doing something nobody else has ever done before. In fact, C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite authors, has an amazing quote that deals exactly with this. So somebody else has already said everything I'm saying right now. That's kind of the point. He said, creativity is not a matter of coming up with an original idea. Don't bother with being original. The more you bother with original, the less likely you are to find it. Simply focus on telling a good story, even if it's the same story people have heard for thousands of years. And that's what C.S. Lewis did. He told the same story that literally people had heard for thousands of years, and now we know him as the guy who wrote Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the Chronicles of Narnia. So when we think about that, the creativity that he brought to the table was simply seeing something that everyone else had already been seeing and putting his own words to it. Creativity is not a matter of genius. It's not a matter of originality. It's a matter of boldness. It's a matter of standing up for your perspective. This is the way that I see the world, and other people can see the world this way too. I want other people to know that my view matters. My perspective matters. That's the boldness of creativity. The boldness of creativity isn't saying, I need to think of a brand new original idea. It's saying, I like this, I like this, I like this, and I'm going to make it. One of my favorite bands, Death Cab for Cutie, when they first started making music, they sound almost exactly like all the other pop punk bands. And in fact, his vocal style sounded the same way. But as he made music more and more and more, he started to change into the artist that I now know of. And I heard his unique voice. In the same way, don't be afraid to copy the same thing that you've been seeing this whole time. That's not unoriginal. That's radical. That's something that could change the entire world. You might be hearing something nobody else hears. You are definitely from a perspective that nobody else has. Think about the simple idea that you are stuck in a global crisis right now. You are a high schooler during a global crisis. Your perspective is unique. Nobody else has seen it through your eyes. So when you write, don't bother with being original. Bother with being true. Focus on telling everyone the exact case and being bold enough to say that it's true. It's not a lizard. It's not a bird. It's been a dinosaur the whole time. I love this idea of Jurassic Park, and I hope that you guys are being creative at home, and I hope that this was an encouragement to you. Smomp your quamps, drop your domps, and don't forget to yell quack. Quack.